And good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us here for our first self-care summer interview session, conversation. The idea behind what we're trying to do here is just to create awareness, and very simply, it's okay, to take care of yourself. The program, really started from some feedback we were getting from some folks in our industry. And we felt that, we just had to start the conversation and let you all know that it is okay to care about yourself. And so we decided that, with the program, we're going to break it down into 3 different months and 3 different topics. The first month being mental health. And it's okay to start a conversation on mental health. And we're going to have some incredible stories along the way and some help from some incredible professionals and some help with some resources as well, which we think are always important. We know that, there's probably a friend, a family member, a brother, a sister, somebody right now that's struggling or having, thoughts and just not okay. And we need to help each and every person. Second month, we'll be going into physical health and nutrition. And then finally, we'll end up with financial health as well. This is your 2021 self-care summer. And so today, I'm going to jump right into it here. Don't want to take too much time. Today we're going to start off with a well-known face in our industry. He's an absolute rock star. He's a gem of a person. Randy Binstock, who is with, I'm playing with the stuff today here. So Randy, welcome.
Thank you,
Randy, you're an absolute genuine person. We know you from an industry perspective. You're always around. You have a smiley face. You're just that guy that's always there to offer a helping hand. But you have a story to tell, and we think your story is absolutely important. And so I don't want to take time away from you, Randy. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Perfect.
And let's hear about your story and how maybe we can help 1 or 2 people out there.
Fantastic. That's great. Perfect. Thank you very much, Trevor. And thank you, everybody, for joining. It's a great topic, and it's one of my missions to bring awareness. This is my own personal story. It has nothing to do with Home Trust. So here we go. So it's okay not to be okay. I have mental illness and learning disabilities. I suffer from depression, dyslexia, ADHD, or as I like to refer to it, HDTV. In my case, dyslexia presents itself in my inability to uptake visual information. It takes me way longer to comprehend what I'm reading because I have a reading comprehension at a grade 6 level. I have never, ever read a book in my whole entire life. I also have anxiety. Oh yeah, I'm terrified of public speaking, but that's okay. Most people don't understand mental illness or dyslexia. Growing up, people were worried that they could catch it from me, but I couldn't give it to them. Most people don't understand what dyslexia is. So a definition from dictionary.com is, it's a general term for disorders that involve difficulties in learning to read or interpret words, letters, and other symbols. But that does not affect general intelligence. Here are a few famous people who suffer or suffered from depression and dyslexia. The following are people that suffer from depression: Ellen DeGeneres, Johnny Depp, Anne Hathaway, Lady Gaga, and Brad Pitt. The following suffered from dyslexia: Albert Einstein, Jennifer Aniston, Steven Spielberg, Richard Branson, just to name a few. When I went to school, learning disabilities were not recognized or dealt with the way they are today. I remember realizing that I was different from all the other kids in grade school. I couldn't pronounce words that my peers could. As I struggled to read and express myself verbally, I grew terrified of being called on in class. I felt as if I couldn't get words out without being made fun of or bullied. Every test I took, I failed. My dyslexia wasn't diagnosed until my late 20s, and my ADHD was diagnosed in my mid-50s. For years, I did my best to hide how much I struggled. because I have difficulty recognizing the different sounds the alphabet letters make. Everyday situations that most people wouldn't blink at fill me with anxiety. Filling out a routine form or being asked to take notes on a whiteboard. Terrifying. Before GPS, when I traveled, I always got lost. Reading a map was just a bunch of lines and colors. When I had to ask for directions, I couldn't write down what the person is saying. Writing a sentence is difficult at best. To this day, I feel panic whenever somebody singles me out and asks for my opinion. My watch is on the military time, 24 hours, because I never could understand what's AM and what's PM. When I worked for a bank, I had some challenges, and they sent me to Chisholm Education Center in Oakville. It was a school for kids with learning disabilities and mental illness. I was in my 40s, going to school with kids in grade 7. They asked me to speak to the students at an assembly as an example of someone who lives and learned how to deal with disabilities and try to manage. I used to live in fear of my secret being exposed, but I don't feel that way anymore. Because school didn't come easily, I had to be creative to succeed in my career. I was good with people, so sales was a natural fit. I'd like to share with you some ways that help me manage my day to day. I prepare for everything. My learning disabilities has caused me to fear the unknown. Feeling prepared lessens my anxiety. Before I attend a meeting, I make sure I have an agenda. I like to know what is expected of me. When I have to go somewhere that I haven't been before, I drive around the area to familiarize myself with it. And hopefully, next time I can find that place. Getting my bearings puts me at ease so I can focus on more important things. I give myself enough time. I've learned that I don't respond well to being rushed. I give myself time to adjust to any situation without putting additional pressure on myself, even when it comes to performing simple tasks. I'm always early for an event or meeting, and if I feel rushed, I panic. When I plan on being early, I find confidence that I have enough time to fix something that goes wrong. That knowledge helps me relax. I rely on backup. I keep important information like my name, my address, SIN number, date of birth readily accessible in my wallet. Again, this reduces my fear and ensures that I don't panic. Technology. Thank goodness for technology. For years, I have used voice recognition software on my laptop and Siri on my iPhone to transform what I say into writing words. For me, this technology is liberating as it allows me to communicate with ease. Keep organized. Well, that's a work in progress because it feels like there's so much confusion going on in my brain at times. It's important for me to keep my physical world, and well organized, in addition to keeping a very organized calendar. When there's so much going on in my head, the last thing I want to do is spend time searching for something I've misplaced. I need to be in control. Anxiety. Boy, oh boy. Well, I had a lot of anxiety before this, that's for sure. For me, anxiety feels as if I've been running for miles and miles and I can't catch my breath. So what do? I repeat the last 5 streets I have lived on, starting with the oldest to the newest. So for example, Newlands, Windermere, Reynolds, Vancouver, Deer Run. I've done this just before we started today. I repeat this as many times as need be to calm down. Some days it's several times and others just a few. As Trevor said, I smile. My smile has masked my insecurities for as long as I can remember. A lot of this advice comes down to accepting myself. I don't beat myself up about my mental illness or learning disabilities anymore. It's forced me to become creative at solving problems and finding solutions. 2 skills I put into practice every day and that I've made a career of. I'm not afraid of anything now. My mantra is, it's okay not to be okay. One thing that helped me was finding something that I absolutely love to do, and that is be a BDM. It was my savior. I only wish I had felt this way sooner. Life would have been a little easier for me in my younger years. I am truly blessed to have the most amazing family in the world. My wife is awesome and I love her dearly. Three amazing, inspiring children, and my seven beautiful grandchildren. They should get a medal for putting up with me. So, what does this have to do with work? I just want to say how honored I am to work for Home Trust. I say it every day to everyone, even those that don't want to hear it. They have given me a safe work environment and the courage to be me and tell my story. I love this company and everyone I work with. You all are outstanding. I'm so blessed to work with everyone. You all have a special gift, and that's just being you. Don't worry about any other competitors. There's no competition. You can achieve anything you set your mind to do. I always wondered what the secret to success is. And you know what? There's no secret. Find the reason you are put on the earth, whatever it is, and do it. Finally, I thank you for understanding and accepting me, even when I'm okay not to be okay. I will be forever grateful. Thank you.
Wow, Randy. One, thank you for coming on and sharing that incredibly personal story. It's definitely not easy to do that, but this is why we're here today
For
is
sure.
to be able to say it's okay to not be okay, as you say.
Yeah, exactly.
And the first time you said that to me, it stuck with me. And there you go. It's a shirt. Maybe we can get a bunch of those made up and get them out. That would be
Absolutely.
something kind of fun to do.
For sure.
But wow, man, I sort of, you almost brought me to tears there, dude. So,
Well, I did, you know
but
what? I've read it so many times, but I'm thinking, whoa, okay, well, that's interesting. And you know what? Because you're in survival mode, and Kyla will talk about this because she's a fantastic therapist. Uh, you don't even think about it. You just keep on going, just doing your thing, and
yeah.
then you know that's about it.
I gotcha. Well, I did have a few questions that sort of had come in, and
For sure.
I'm seeing some of the comments and the appreciation that's pouring in, which is kind of nice. But so we know that we've all gone through COVID, and we're slowly starting to come out of that. Fingers crossed that it
Yep.
continues to go that way. But have you done anything extra to take care of yourself or your mental state during the pandemic?
So I haven't done enough, that's for sure. I'm usually more concerned about others than myself, and Kyla will say, "Okay, that has to stop." Um, and then also, I've gone through a few therapists in the past, I would say almost 2 years, and I finally was introduced to Kyla, and she's totally changed my life. She is absolutely fantastic, and you know what? Just talking to her and understanding that you're not the only person that's going through this,
Yeah, I can actually see that, and we're going to get a chance to meet Kyla here, and I'm quite
for
excited. I got a
sure.
few minutes before just to quickly meet her, and you can tell right off the bat that she's a very warming person and seems just very cool with it's okay, right? So
Absolutely.
so here's and this is as we started this program and started to talk, it's sort of something that's been on my mind too, and maybe this is a question for all of us, but why are you so passionate about mental health awareness?
Well, I think because my whole life, up until some of my adult life, I've been bullied, I've been made fun of. And you know what? I just got to the point where I said, enough is enough. It's my mission and my passion to bring awareness and acceptance to mental health. I think there's nothing wrong. You know what? It's not like a cold. You caught it and you're giving it and stuff like that. And you know what? I just want to make sure that the stigma eventually will be dropped, and it'll be just like having a conversation. Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I have mental illness. Oh, well, wonderful. Well, yeah, things of that sort.
I got you. Yeah, we were even talking before, and here's. I guess I didn't say this to kick off. I mean, one of the things we said as we were going through this is we want to have some fun with this too, right?
Yeah,
Because you know what, yeah, it's a tough conversation, but we can also have fun at the same time, and sometimes we learn better when we're having fun, right? So,
for sure.
so that's for anybody listening, or if you're going to invite a friend, it's all about having fun, and sometimes we learn more, like I said, through that. So what would you tell people that are struggling with any sort of mental health right now? What's that,
I,
message that you want to put
I
out
would
there?
say just three things. One, it's okay not to be okay. Two, you're not alone. And three, take the first step to talk to somebody. Make it, just go out and get out of your comfort zone and either reach out to a therapist like I did to Kyla, and or somebody that you can just talk to, because the more that it spins in your mind and your brain and goes over and over, it's not good. And I can tell you, it took me a long time to realize, you know what, stupid, I can say that, oops, you have to take care of yourself for sure.
Yeah, for sure, Randy. I'm going to invite you back in when we get to wrapping up the program here today. But I just want to thank you again for
My pleasure.
just being incredibly open. I know you're
No
helping
problem.
people right now, so thanks, pal.
Thanks, Trevor.
Appreciate it.
Talk
We'll see you shortly.
for sure. Thank you.
All right. So for those that know me a little bit, I have issues reading a lot, actually. So, but I want to do Kyla justice here, and in her bio, and the one thing she said to me before, and I like sharing these little secrets. She's like, I don't need you to share the bio, but I think it's important that we do, because she touches such a wide range of mental health sort of areas, and I think it's important that we sort of visit those. So just bear with me, please, if you can. But Kyla Fox has established herself as a visionary and innovator when it comes to reframing the way Canadians think about and treat eating disorders. As someone who struggled herself with an eating disorder, Fox identified care gaps and fundamental flaws in the treatment and recovery approach. Kyla is a master's level clinician with degrees from both the University of Toronto in the Masters of Social Work program, as well as an honors Bachelor of Arts degree in Women's Studies. Kyla is a member of the Ontario Association of Social Workers and is registered with the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. Say that 3 times fast. With such deep and varied experience in the field, Kyla is regularly called on by Canada's top media outlets as a special commentator on a broad list of topics, including eating disorders, self-esteem, women's health, body images, pregnancy and body confidence, and more. Kyla and the Kyla Fox Center were recently featured in Bustle Magazine, I hope I said that right, and highlighted on Gwyneth Paltrow's highly acclaimed lifestyle website, Goop. She was also recently selected as a spokesperson for Uniqlo Canada's Lifewear line. And for more information, we will show you that later. But Kyla, welcome to Self-Care Summer, and thank you so much for joining us here. It's an honor to have you. And like I said to everybody before, I got a chance to quickly meet you, and they're going to get a chance to see why you're so amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that unbelievable introduction. You did great. All the reading was awesome. And Randy has thrown this all off to a start. I'm so happy to be here, really, Trevor. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks, Kyla. I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I think what I really wanted to do was sort of dovetail off of what Randy was able to start, which is raising awareness about mental health. And I feel like that is really my mission as a person on this planet, to sharing the truths about people. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey and why I do the work that I do. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I suffered quite severely with an eating disorder, really, really acute anorexia and an over-exercise addiction. And this really debilitated my life for a very, very long time, many, many years, in fact. And I had this moment. It's an interesting thing when you have an eating disorder, because you sort of vacillate between wanting desperately to not have it, but wanting also desperately to keep it. And I had this moment where I was in the car with my mom. For those of you who live in the Toronto area, you will know that I was on the 401 in bumper to bumper traffic with my mother. And I started to feel incredible pain in my chest. My vision went blurry. My hearing started to block out. I felt like I couldn't feel my limbs. And I remember looking at my mother and saying to her, I think I'm going to die. And she was terrified and looked at me in absolute horror. And in that moment, I realized that what I was experiencing with this deep suffering with an eating disorder was so much bigger than me. It was about her too, and the rest of my family and all the people that loved me that were on this journey of suffering with me. And I don't remember much else that happened except that I woke up in a hospital. And it was at that point that I realized that the eating disorder that I had been suffering with was way bigger than me, and that I needed to do anything I possibly could to try to address it and to free myself and to actually really understand why this had happened to me in the first place. One of the things that is really important to me is speaking out about eating disorders in particular, because I feel like they're just so misunderstood. We live in a world where eating disorders really are understood as being about vanity and, wanting to achieve thinness and change the way that a person looks. But really, eating disorders actually have nothing to do with food, and they have nothing to do with the body. That's really just where all of the stuff that's internal to someone starts to manifest. And so when you struggle with an eating disorder, of course, there's very acute food and body pieces that have to be addressed. But what's even more, or not more important, but equally as important, is helping people to understand what's really at the core of what's going on with them, what's really deep within them that actually is causing these harmful behaviors in food and the body. And so I when I had made this decision that I wanted to get well, and I was really scared about what was happening for me, there wasn't really a lot of options in Toronto. My parents really didn't know where to send me. I was kind of in this interesting zone in my life because I was sort of like coming out of my adolescence into my adulthood. So I didn't really fit nicely into hospital-based programs in that regard. And the wait lists were just so tremendously long. I didn't have the time to wait. I don't think I would have made it. And so what I ended up doing was kind of needing to sort of develop treatment within my home. And my family was very, very acutely involved in my care and supporting me in all these pieces. It wasn't a pleasant journey. It wasn't an easy journey. I never like to sugarcoat how hard it is to move through recovery and to find freedom and wellness. But what it did was it made me want to become the therapist that I really would have wanted to have had when I was suffering. And so many years later, now I've been practicing for 20 years. But I really wanted to be able to give back to people who have experienced eating disorders, negative body image, disordered eating, just low self-concept, all the kinds of pieces that come with being able to own yourself in the world and who you are. And so I opened up an eating disorder recovery center, which is called the Kyla Fox Center, and it's in Toronto. And we offer comprehensive outpatient eating disorder treatment. And we service people in all kinds of different comprehensive ways in order to help people like find comfort and safety and ease with themselves, with food, with their body. And so that has been my greatest gift, really, outside of being a mom of my two little girls. But in terms of my professional life, I feel so privileged that I get to speak to people every day and have these kinds of honest conversations, which I actually think is the key piece to normalizing mental health and to helping people heal, giving space for people to move into who they are honestly and to becoming their most authentic self. You know, when you hear Randy speak and you can learn about him in those deeper places of who he is, you get to know Randy. And I think the same is true for anyone who's been through something or who is going through something, that there's something very beautiful and accessible about people when we just get to actually be humans with each other and be really honest with each other and move through challenging things with each other and not feel shame about that. And so in essence, I feel like that's the greatest privilege of the work that I get to do, is I sit with people in their most honest, vulnerable form and get to see who they are. it's an incredible gift, truly. So I know, Trevor, that maybe there were some questions that you maybe wanted me to touch in on. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, for sure. There's sort of a few questions we had, but this is sort of something, as you were talking, it sort of came to my mind, and maybe it's one of the questions that I had anyhow, but like you talked a little bit about eating disorders, and and again, the pandemic, we're still quasi in the pandemic right now. Is that something that you've seen a little bit more with COVID, like the eating disorders, one way or the other, whether it be bulimia or anorexia or?
Yeah, absolutely. There has been a massive increase in those affected by eating disorders through the pandemic, regardless of the level or where you are on the spectrum, whether it's restriction, binging, purging, anything and everything in between. Most people with eating disorders vacillate between those symptoms, but certainly what's happened over the course of the pandemic is that there's been so much more people coming forward with suffering. And I think a lot of that also obviously has to do with the confinement of life, the lack of control that we all have felt, the anxiety and fear, in addition to the fact that we've therefore been sort of had so much more focus on food in the body through this time, and in ways that have been somewhat unnatural, because usually we're in our life and we're engaged in the world and we're doing all kinds of things. But when the whole world shut down, we as people really had connection to really not anything except for maybe our body and food. And I think that's been at the core of why there's been such a prevalent increase in eating disorders, in addition to the fact that there's so much that we can't control. And so food and the body have become an entity to try to manifest that, in addition to the fact that the lack of control that we have in the world also gets manifest in feeling so out of control with food in the body. So it's actually been a major, major problem over the course of the pandemic, sadly.
I sort of have a follow-up to that too, Kyla. So I know it's maybe not a food eating disorder, but I hear a lot of people having extra alcohol. Would you sort of classify that as something with mental health as well in the pandemic, or like
Sure.
How does that fall into it?
Yeah, I think there's no question that addiction, would be under the umbrella of a mental health issue. And certainly, I think what people have been doing over the course of the pandemic is trying to find ways to escape life, to numb out, to find safety, to avoid feelings, to find some element of joy. And I think in some ways, food or drugs or alcohol have acted in those moments as what's accessible. There are a lot of people who are affected by eating disorders and concurrent addiction behavior like drugs and alcohol. They often tend to overlap or swap. And so even though I think that they're fundamentally different, just in the sense that when a person has alcoholism or a drug addiction, the work in their own sobriety or recovery is about learning abstinence. When you have an eating disorder, you can't learn abstinence. You actually have to learn how to be in relationship with food. And so it's a bit of a difference in the recovery process. But I think in essence, the pieces around wanting to go away from yourself, or numbing out, or isolating from the world, I think those things are similar.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess what we want to do here is, you've given some incredible story, first of all, so thank you for that. But probably want to give some resources for anybody who's watching, or anybody in the future who's watching. So one of the questions I had are, any sort of tips and tricks that you have, maybe breathing, grounding exercises. Is there something that people can do that you could leave them with today?
Yeah, sure. We could do something together if you want. I'll do it, and you can do it in the privacy of your own spaces. So one of the things that I think is really important to understand is mental health is interesting in the fact that sometimes a lot of symptoms swap all over the place, but anxiety as a really prominent mental health issue, especially at a time where there's so little control, is a really fundamental way that people are struggling. And so one of the things that it's important to remember is that when you're anxious, you do really want to find ways to actually calm your body down calm your thoughts down. Usually anxiety is interesting because it just lives in the brain, right? And it's just sort of ruminating, catastrophizing, thinking, worrying, wondering, all that kind of stuff. And so usually when people feel anxious, they'll describe some of the symptoms that I even talked about at the beginning when I was sharing my story with my mother. But fundamentally, this struggle with like not being able to breathe, or feeling like really scared. And so fear kind of lives up here in the body. One of the things that's really important about mental health is that even though it lives in the mind, it actually shows itself in the body. And so usually when you struggle with mental health, there's like this disconnection that ends up happening with the body. So much about recovery is actually connecting your brain with your body and understanding the messages and the relationship that needs to develop. So here's to say that if you do feel anxious, usually your breath would be short and quick, and it would actually there's a banner on me so you can't really see. It would be up here when people are breathing short and fast and anxious breath. So one of the things that we really want to do is actually bring down the breath and help people to calm down and center into your body. So this is actually something you can do in a meeting. This is something you can do anywhere in life. Just drop your hands onto your belly. And so you want to move the breath, the short, quick breath that's happening up here, and you want to drop it on your belly. So you can all do this with me right now. We can do this together. And I'll be the one that like models this with my eyes closed. So essentially, you want to feel your belly with your hands, and you want to deeply exhale all your air out. And then you want to inhale, and you'll feel that your belly inhales. And then when you exhale, you push your belly out right into your hands, and inhale, feel your hands go in, and exhale, push it out. So when you do this, when you have that slow and steady breath right into your belly, you bring that intensity down into your body. And what you'll notice is that if you're actually concentrating on how to thoughtfully breathe, you can stop that busy mind from going. So this is something that I used to do when I was younger all the time when I was feeling really panicked. I do it now even still. It's just a very little trick to help you just kind of come back into your body.
That totally worked, actually.
Oh, great. You're calm.
The next time I have to read something in front of a group, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, just hands on the belly and let it come in and out.
I love it. I did have one more question here, and maybe this is just sort of a look ahead for some folks. But what sort of things do you see that may arise as we come out of the pandemic from a mental health perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question, Trevor. You know what? I actually think that in some ways, just as anxious as we were that the pandemic was actually coming and not understanding what this was going to mean for our lives, I feel that getting back into the world feels equally, if not more so, anxiety provoking in some ways for people. So we've become so accustomed to this level of isolation. But in addition to that, we've really lost the experience of being around people, being connected to life, like going out with people, being seen with people, feeling safe with people. There's so much fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's all kinds of feelings around what COVID is. Do you get a vaccine? Do you not? Different opinions about things like that. Do we have to go back to work? Do we work from home? All these different ways that I think people are feeling afraid of moving back out into the world and trusting the world and feeling safe. So even though this can feel like an exciting time for a lot of people and a relief too, it actually is provoking a lot of other forms of anxiety because we've become so accustomed to being alone and to being, protected and to being, in control in our own ways and adjusting to life being, much more insular. So if you do feel that the world opening up is an anxious thing for you, you're not alone in that. I think it's going to be one of those things that might take a little bit of time, and eventually, like anything, we'll find our stride.
Yeah, that's, we were even talking about it before, right? So it's something to pay attention to for sure. Well, Kyla, just, from our company and our friendship and all of that, we just want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to bring Randy back into this now. And I know Randy gave the opportunity for us to have you here today and introduce you to us. And
she's the best.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Randy, I was having tears while you were talking. Thank you. And thank you, Trevor. It's really just such an honor to be here. I feel so lucky.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. And, I think this was, we weren't sure how this was going to work out for our first one, but I got to say, I think everybody, it worked out quite well. And as Randy says, it's okay to not be okay. And let's keep that in mind every single day. For those that are, watching within our company, you have anybody on the team you can reach out to anytime. But if it's that severe, you can always seek out a professional. And I put Kyla's information on the bottom there. You can always reach out to her or her team as well. And maybe there's a fit for you to get some help as well if you need that. So I just want to thank you both for being here today. And on behalf of For Safe Funding,
thank you.
Thank you. This is Self-Care Summer. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we will see you next Tuesday at 2 p.m. For Self-Care Summer.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.